This week on Sneak Previews, Hot Shot, Part Deux, another slapstick comedy, again with Charlie Sheen, this time spoofing Rambo. And Much Ado About Nothing with Kenneth Branagh taking another swipe at Shakespeare, helped by an all-star cast. An American Heart with Jeff Bridges as a down and nearly out father trying to save his son from a life on the streets. Plus 3 more titles on this week's Sneak Previews.
You're a symphony, a very beautiful sonata, my innamorata. Say that you're my sweetheart, my love. Symphony, a very beautiful sonata, my innamorata. Say that you're my sweetheart, my love.
Kiss me like you've never kissed me before.
Talk about your after-dinner treats. Hope she didn't have a cold. That was Charlie Sheen nosing around. Valeria Golino doing another version, of course, of Lady and the Tramp in a scene from Hot Shots, Part Deux, one of this summer's big comedy movies. I'm Jeffrey Lyons.
And I'm Michael Medved, and we'll take our own shots at Hot Shots in a moment. But first up is a dazzling new release that's based on the work of a pretty fair screenwriter named Will Shakespeare. Now, this is director Kenneth Branagh's eagerly awaited version of Much Ado About Nothing, with Branagh and his off-screen wife, Oscar winner Emma Thompson, playing Beatrice and Benedict, whose attraction to one another is very well hidden by some notably nasty verbal sparring.
My dear Lady Disdain, are you yet living?
Is it possible Disdain should die while she had such meat food to feed it as Signor Benedict? Courtesy itself must convert to disdain if you come in her presence.
Then is courtesy a turncoat. But it is certain I am loved of all ladies, only you excepted, and I would I could find in my heart that I had not a hard heart, for truly I love none.
A dear happiness to women. They would else have been troubled with a pernicious suitor. I thank God and my cold blood I am of your humor for that. I had rather hear my dog bark at a crow than a man swear he loves me.
God keep your ladyship still in that mind, so some gentleman or other shall scape a predestinate scratched face.
Scratching could not make it worse, and for such a face as yours were.
Well, you are a rare parrot teacher.
A bird of my tongue is better than a beast of yours.
I would my horse had the speed of your tongue. But keep your way, in God's name, I have done.
You always end with a jade's trick. I know you of old.
But there's another romance, too, with Claudio, played by Robert Sean Leonard, drawn to a beautiful maiden despite the skepticism of his macho pal.
Can the world buy such a jewel?
Yea, and a case to put it into. But speak you this with a sad brow?
In mine eyes, she's the sweetest lady that ever I looked on.
I can see yet without spectacles, and I see no such matter. There's her cousin, and she were not possessed with a fury. Exceeds her as much in beauty as the 1st of May doth the last of December. But I hope you have no intent to turn husband. Have you?
I would scarce trust myself, though I had sworn the contrary. If Hero would be my wife.
Is't come to this? Shall I never see a bachelor of 80 again?
I will in the interim undertake one of Hercules' labors, which is to bring Signor Benedict and the Lady Beatrice into a mountain of affection, the one with the other.
Denzel Washington plays Prince Don Pedro, who hatches a merry plan to bring Beatrice and Benedict together in spite of themselves.
I am for you, though it cost me 10 nights' watchings.
And I, my lord. And you too, gentle hero.
I will do any modest office, my lord, to help my cousin to a good husband.
If we can do this, Cupid is no longer an archer. His glory shall be ours. For we are the only love gods. Go with me. I will tell you my drift.
Michael, I am not going very far out on a limb when I tell you I think this is one of not only the best films of the year, but possibly of the decade. And here we are only in 1993. This is a luminous work of art. It makes Shakespeare fun. It's lusty and bawdy and wonderful and witty and wise. And it's a work of brilliance.
It really certainly is. I think it's actually the feel-good movie of the summer, which you don't expect when you hear Shakespeare play. You think it's going to be sort of claustrophobic and serious. Not at all. There's a marvelous outdoor feeling, a lusty feeling here, all shot in a beautiful, sunny, hot, 14th century Italian villa. There's not really a clear determination about whether this is supposed to be taking place in the Renaissance or the 18th century.
Some of the costumes kind of fudge that, right?
It's sort of a fairy tale feeling, but gosh, this is wonderful. And I think that the best indication of the kind of miracle that Kenneth Branagh has achieved as a director is he has Keanu Reeves playing Shakespeare very, very well.
He's going to get the 13 and 14-year-old girls coming into the theater wanting to see Keanu Reeves with his shirt off, but it's a brilliant stroke of casting, too. He gets these actors, Robert Sean Leonard also, to stretch a little bit and do works they probably would never have done.
And Michael Keaton. Michael Keaton's hilarious in this movie. He plays the Constable Dogberry who mangles the language. I think it's the funniest Michael Keaton has been since Night Shift. And there's chemistry here. There's a feeling of family with the whole cast. And the chemistry between Emma Thompson and Kenneth Branagh has such a terrific edge to it. You really can feel it as merry combat, the way Shakespeare described it.
You must remember, I mean, it's obvious Shakespeare was made to be performed, not read in school as part of homework. But had Shakespeare lived to be able to write a screenplay rather than just a stage play, this would have been the way I think it would have turned out.
Well, this is an absolutely miraculous film. Everybody should go and see it and enjoy it. And some of the credit belongs not only to Kenneth Branagh and the rest of his cast, but to Patrick Doyle, who wrote glorious film music. This film is scored almost from beginning to end. Doyle is the same composer who did Henry V. Here, I think it's so beautiful, lush, nostalgic. People are going to want to run out and buy the CD just to enjoy the music and remember the beautiful film.
Kenneth Branagh is just 32. Imagine what lies ahead for this brilliant filmmaker. Well, next up is Hot Shots Part Deux, the sequel to the silly but undeniably funny comedy of 2 years ago. Again starring Charlie Sheen as Topper Harley, a highly decorated Navy lieutenant and perfect fighting machine. Now, early in the movie, his old commanding officer, Richard Crenna, who you may recall from the Rambo movies, has tracked him down at a remote Buddhist monastery in Thailand and tries to lure him out of retirement to lead a rescue mission to save some hostages.
Topper, let me tell you a little story. It seems there were 3 bears. And one morning when their porridge was too hot, they went for a walk. And a little blonde girl came skipping through the woods. And she ate their porridge, and she sat in their chairs, and she slept in their beds. And when those bears returned and discovered that mess, do you know what happened then, Topper?
No.
That little blonde girl got scared. Ran away.
So what you're saying is that little blonde girl is me? If this is about me coloring my hair...
Topper, they didn't make you this fighting machine. They just cooked up the porridge and went for a walk.
Topper Harley is missing. His boat has been demolished.
Oh, damn it! Oh! Every time I give...
Now, in the original Hot Shots, Lloyd Bridges played a scatterbrained admiral, but he's now the commander-in-chief, and aboard Air Force One, he's about to fork over his own rescue plan.
Isn't it? We need a plan. This may be our last chance to get the hostages out.
All right. Now, here's where we are, and here is where they are.
Oh, God.
Oh, no time for prayer, Bob. Now, this is the target area.
It's Minnesota, sir.
Oh, damn it, man. That's the genius of my plan. We don't have to traipse all over the world to fight. We can do it right here at home. Get us some good fishing while we're at it.
Sir, the enemy is over there.
Then we'll fly them over here. They can bring their relatives. We'll teach them to ice skate. Do I have to think of everything?
Well, I do think of just about everything in this movie. This is a film that is gross. It is outrageous. It's immature. It's exactly what the audience wants, and I found it hilarious. I mean,
sounds like our show sometimes.
Yeah, right. I was laughing from beginning to end, and I think a good test for whether people are going to enjoy this or not is how you feel about the famous campfire scene in Blazing Saddles. If that scene was a little bit too much for you, a little bit too odious, leave this film alone.
You have to sit downwind, right?
Right, but if you liked that campfire scene, then you're going to love this film. Lots of bodily function jokes, some of the first
it's for
nose candy
10-year-olds and
jokes.
11-year-olds, and that's fine, and parents can take their kids. There's one kind of kinky sex scene which I had to kind of you know, explain to my son what was going on. I said, well, she's doing this because she's really a spy. He kind of bought that.
Only because he hadn't seen Basic Instinct.
That's right, of course. Now, there are some very funny spoofs on the other movies. It's made by the same group of people who are responsible for the Airplane movies and Naked Gun and some of the, and Police Squad on TV. And one sight gag after another. Some interesting cameos, too, by people like Bob Vila, among others. And, you know, I think it works very well.
Martin Sheen.
Martin
I mean,
Sheen.
there's a hilarious interchange between
Martin
Martin Sheen and Charlie Sheen. Frankly, I think of that sort of son of Airplane movies, this is the very best one of the whole series since the original Airplane. I think it's much more energetic, much more original and inventive than the original Hot Shots, partially because it takes on so many movies.
It's also topical, too. They haven't waited 2 or 3 or 4 years after some of the events they're spoofing. They've waited as long as you know, as long as it's necessary to get a film like this done. If one sight gag that you see doesn't please you or you think it's dumb, wait 10 seconds, another one will come along.
Well, again, because they take on Casablanca, they take on a lot of Basic Instincts, they take on Apocalypse Now. The Saddam Hussein look-alike is terrific.
A lot of look-alikes there. You know, Lloyd Bridges to me was the funniest thing because Lloyd Bridges has been a serious actor over the years. You know, his son is in a movie we're going to do later on in the show. He was in High Noon. He's been around forever. His comedic timing is wonderful.
It is absolutely wonderful. This will obviously be remembered. It's one of the high points of his distinguished career. And speaking of Lloyd Bridges' son, Jeff Bridges, next up is American Heart, which brings us yet another outstanding performance by that actor, Jeff Bridges, who's fast becoming America's most consistently brilliant, but I think underappreciated actor. And here, he takes the role of a melancholy convict who's released from prison and then reconnected against his will with his teenage son. Now, in this scene, that boy, who's played by Edward Furlong, who you'll remember from Terminator 2, gets some fatherly advice on how to handle a young lady he's just met.
Now, I know what it's like your first time. They can break your heart, but you got to remember, you're a good-looking kid. You got my looks. You got to learn to keep your heart. See? Let them lose theirs, you keep yours. That's the trick of being a heartbreaker.
Did you break my mom's heart? Huh?
Maybe I did.
Why are you telling me all of this?
Because that's the way a father and son should be together. I'm just trying to do for you what nobody ever did for me. Don't put all your beans in one pot, Nick. There'll be hundreds of dames.
She's not a dame.
That ain't her first time around.
What do you know about her?
Hey, I'm just trying to keep you straight. You keep me straight, I'll keep you straight.
Well, that's about as close as they ever get in the movie, Michael. This is not the kind of film that I usually like or can recommend. It's very depressing. It's very downbeat. But I found it real. I found it earthy. I found it touching and poignant. I found it, yes, very depressing, but I found it as a movie that picks up where Streetwise, which was a documentary made by Martin Bell, who directed this film as well, left off. It kind of dramatizes the same problem of the homeless, of people living on the edge of society.
Yeah, but then it doesn't have the courage to follow through on that. I mean, I do respect what you're saying, and I agree with much of what you're saying, but the fact is the movie wimps out. It sort of puts on a Hollywood ending that is very contrived and looks like it's from a
depressing ending.
No,
but
it's
all the way
more
he shot it may have been depressing.
Yeah, but
it's a commercial film,
without
though.
trying to give it away. They tack on this ending, which seems like it's from another movie entirely, and is very melodramatic and not believable.
Ending, right?
No, I'm not talking about a happy ending. I mean, obviously, this is a slice-of-life movie, but then they move on with this sort of manipulative thing that comes out of left field. I hate that when they ruin a good movie that way.
Maybe so.
The other thing that ruined it for me is Edward Furlong. I mean, I think that, you know, Jeff Bridges is so good, but this kid is too much of a pretty boy, and he's very wooden. He's not a good actor.
You can't fault him for his looks. You can fault him for the fact that he was cast in the movie,
he's
perhaps.
wrong.
But I think he is very somber throughout the movie. He's one-dimensional. But Jeff Bridges' character is such a flawed hero. He's not even a hero. In one scene early in the movie, his son goes to sleep on the one bed in their little flop house room. He sleeps on the spring mattress. And then when the boy is asleep, he puts him on the springs and he goes on the bed. And then he says to the boy, go to school. And the boy says, what school? And he says, I don't know, find one. I mean, this is a very strange and depressing relationship.
Yeah, it is. And it's a strange and depressing movie. Bridges is remarkable. I think it's the best performance anybody's ever given trying to play an ex-con. con who's struggling to go straight and lead a decent life. It reminded me a little bit of the Dustin Hoffman movie Straight Time. Yeah, which was a very fine movie years ago, but this is even better.
You also said right, he's underappreciated. Remember, everybody thinks the Fisher King, how wonderful Robin Williams was. Jeff Bridges was the co-star and deserved an Oscar nomination
look at
too,
so much of what he's done. Cutter and Bone and Tucker, he was fabulous. This guy is consistently good, and he's great here. I just think he deserved a better script, and a better co-star.
Well, next up is Menace to Society, a hard-hitting look at life on the dangerous streets of another city. The earlier movie was Seattle. This one is South Central Los Angeles, starring Tyrone Turner as a young drug dealer in a remarkably powerful movie created by 20-year-old twin brothers Albert and Alan Hughes.
You gotta think about your life. Being a black man in America isn't easy. All I'm saying is, survive.
You need to be glad that you graduated from high school and that you're alive at 18. And you need to do something with yourself before you end up like he did.
I'm not gonna end up like he did, all right?
Mother, mother, there's too many of you crying. Brother, 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 there's far too many of you dying. You know we've got to find a way.
Oh man, you know I'm down, but I also know that life has better things to offer than what's on the street out there.
This film is a knockout. I mean, I was stunned after I saw it, and actually I'm probably going to go see it again. It does something absolutely remarkable. A lot of people are going to compare it to Boys in the Hood. I think this is a even stronger film because it focuses not on sort of good kids who are caught up in a bad neighborhood and a bad situation. It has the courage to really focus on the criminal underclass. I mean, people who are despicable, but this movie makes you care about them, it makes them real, and shows you some of the tragic circumstances in those lives.
Well, Jada Pinkett and Lorenz Tate are also in the cast as some of these supporting characters, but they're very good in an ensemble group here. I don't even want to make this sound like it's a group of actors. It is so true to life. And the kid who plays Kane is basically a good kid at heart. He finishes high school, he narrates to us,
but he gets a drug dealer all the way through high school.
Exactly, but he gets caught up in this life that is inescapable. You know, he's not anything larger than life. He's not part of a gang, but he's part of a group of kids who hang out. He has a gun, and in his neighborhood, it's almost as natural as you and I having a book. It's unbelievable.
Well, and the movie starts out very audaciously with one of the most brutal and unpleasant murders you're likely to see, and then it sort of moves on from there, and things get worse and worse, and yet it is so beautifully shot. The camera work is just stunning. It's shot by a camera person named Lena Kinsler, who had previously shot a very different film, True Love, which remember we both liked so much, and here the images sort of glow out at you, and they're sort of burned in the memory. I can't remember seeing scenes of people's bodies riddled with bullets where it hits you with more of an impact. It's comparable in that way to Unforgiven.
But I don't want to turn people off. People saying, oh, it's just another Boys in the Hood, just another movie about street violence. But because the fact remains that the problem is there, and the more we see realistic, non-exploitative movies about it, I think the closer we'll be coming to addressing the real problem.
But this movie isn't preachy one bit. I mean, this is what the two twin brothers who directed, the Hughes brothers, have said, that they're not going to preach to people. They just lay it out there. And all the characters are so interestingly shaded. Look, obviously, this is not for a family audience. I mean, it's filled with language. The violence is absolutely terrifying, but this makes an impression that no one will ever forget.
You walk away saying, this, my God, this is going on in our cities today.
Yeah, well, next up is something very, very different, and that's our Family Fine section of the show, where this week, now, older kids can definitely go along with their parents and enjoy the gorgeous Much Ado About Nothing, which we talked about before. But there is also a new animated feature that's opening in theaters that's aimed at smaller kids, that is Much Ado About Nothing, and this one is called Happily Ever After. Now, this animated feature has no connection at all with the Disney classic Snow White, even though it does tell the story of the further adventures of Snow White, beginning right after she and Prince Charming have ridden off together into the sunset. But they've been separated by the evil Lord Malice, with Snow White wandering through a scary cave and running into a mysterious shadow man while she tries to rescue her prince with the help of 7 dwarf elves, played by the voices of some famous veteran actresses.
Look, there's someone in the shadows.
Hey, who is he? There he goes.
Get that shadow man.
He's hurt.
No, don't.
I bet he works for Lord Malice.
I think kids are going to love this because it's kind of a combination of, yes, the Saturday morning TV things that they always watch, but it's also much better than that, particularly Phyllis Diller, who plays Mother Nature, who has the best number in the movie. Now, if she's Mother Nature, I think with all due respect to her, you wonder why there's recycling and there's an environmental problem. Well, she's very good in
this whole movie has a lot of recycling. I mean, there's Zsa Zsa Gabor, there's Carol Channing, Ed Asner, Tracy Ullman is in it.
It also has an anti-smoking message at the end. The owl puffs cigars, and at the end they take the cigar and they stomp on it, and then he says, I can breathe again.
I'm glad you found that message. Look, I think this is fun. It's mildly entertaining. No one should confuse it with the other Snow White, which is coming out later in the summer. They're very smart to get this into theaters first before that other Snow White comes out.
Confuse the kids?
Well, the comparison doesn't work to the advantage of this movie. Though I will say it's interesting. This is sort of a politically correct updating of Snow White because this time she rescues the prince and she has dwarf elves instead of dwarves, and also the bad guy is not an evil queen, it's an evil male.
I'm delighted you see politics in the further adventures of Snow White, Michael. It means you can find absolutely, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just it'll go above so far above the heads of its intended audience.
Look, some of the music is pretty good. The animation is not bad. It sometimes is above the Saturday morning level, and
not much,
the fact is the key test is both my 6-year-old and my 4-year-old enjoyed it thoroughly. They gave it 3 stars.
Can you believe it? I watched it alone. My kids have yet to see it. This week, our Screen by Teens panel takes a look at one of last year's most acclaimed movies, A River Runs Through It, which has just come out on video. It's a wistful look back at a young man's relationship with his brother and their minister father, played by Tom Skerritt, and at their life together in Missoula, Montana, back in the 1920s. Much of the focus of this beautiful film was centered around the family ritual of fly fishing near their home.
Okay. They're both marvels.
I'd say the Lord has blessed us all today. It's just that he's been particularly good to me.
Then our panel of young critics reeled in their thoughts, about A River Runs Through It. So, Jonathan, what'd you think of the film?
Yeah, wild, because, I mean, I'm not an outdoor person, Michael and Jeffrey, but after watching River Runs Through It, I wanted to go fly fishing. I wanted to learn how to go fishing, and this movie was so beautifully crafted. It's like a fine piece of artwork that I really just enjoyed it.
I mean, the cinematography was excellent. All the shots are really beautiful. They won an Oscar for Best Cinematography, very well deserved. And I loved Brad Pitt. I mean, I thought he was an excellent actor in this movie, but he always gets into playing these rebel without a cause type of characters, and I'd like to see him in something different. You know?
That's true. Well, I liked most of the performances, too. I mean, Tom Skerritt was good and Craig Schiffer, but I just didn't like the movie. I thought it was kind of boring. There wasn't much action. It was just about relationships, and I don't like that. What about the relationships, John, though? Between, the only way this family could communicate was through the magic of fly fishing. There was something wonderful about that for me, at least. Yeah, I don't know, though, because I thought the scenery was great, but just the story didn't do it for me, so...
The scenery was the best part of the movie, I guess.
Well, John and Kenya both liked it. I just did not. Back to you, Michael and Jeffrey.
Yeah, I kind of agree with both sides. I liked the movie not as much as you did. I said at the time that it's true that a river runs through it, but it runs through very slowly.
I love watching you quote yourself, Michael. I'm a street corner kid, a guy from New York, and the son of a street corner guy. If I can get interested in a movie about fly fishing in Montana, it means the film is working on me, and it sure did, and it deserved more consideration, I think, at the Oscars than it received.
I'll agree with you on that one. Now to summarize our reviews of all the 6 titles we covered this week. Our best bet is clear. It's the glorious Much Ado About Nothing. This is not only the feel-good movie of the summer, it's also one of the most enjoyable Shakespearean adaptations ever filmed. Though there are some relatively discreet references to sex, this film definitely makes delightful viewing for anybody over the age of, say, 8 or 9. On Hot Shots Part Deux, we agree that it's outrageous and gross and also hilarious, just what the audience is expecting. There's a good deal of nudity and sexual content, all of it in a comic context, and loads of satirical comic book slaughter. On American Heart, we split. Jeff thought it was powerful and poignant, but I thought it was ruined by an inept ending and Edward Furlong's wooden performance. As you'd expect for a gritty tale of an ex-con and his son, there's a great deal of raunchy language, some graphic sex, and gory violence. We agree that Menace to Society is a remarkable achievement, bleak, powerful, totally persuasive. It does include, however, non-stop use of street language, one brief sex scene, and a great deal of graphic violence that's chilling and unforgettable. Our family find the upcoming G-rated release, Happily Ever After, will entertain the kiddies, while parents may be checking their watches just a bit. And our Screen by Teens panel split 2-1 in favor of A River Runs Through It. One of Jeff's choices is the best of last year, with only a few brief, subtle moments of sex and violence.
So that's it for this week. Join us next time, won't you, when we take a special look at a shocking new development in Hollywood. The return of the family movie, with every major studio suddenly promising to make more movies that parents can enjoy together with their kids. We'll ask whether this is a genuine change of heart or a passing fad, a clever marketing ploy, or the wave of the future. And we'll look at some of the major titles in the new flood of family films on our next Sneak Previews. I'm Jeffrey Lyons.
And I'm Michael Medved, and until next time on Sneak Previews, don't forget to save us those aisle seats.